thing I keep hearing over and over and over again is that we're under pressure to change to a whole new way of doing our development. And people are struggling a bit with that. So this chart is from a study by Gartner, and it says that the biggest concern we see here up here is building and delivering quality software at a proper scale. And you hear this over and over again, is that shops are having trouble keeping up with all of the tasks that they're being asked to do. So they need ways to do it more efficiently. But they're also, with trying to do it faster, they're having trouble with quality, getting everything right. So automation helps us do some of the more tedious steps by having them all happen. And that's really what CI/CD is about. It's about that automation. 77% of organizations say that they currently rely on DevOps to deploy software or plan to in the near future. That's from the Harvard Business Review. Now, in the IBM world, that's a much smaller number. People are struggling with the differences in our environment and how to get there. So, of course, I'm lucky to have with me Donna Westmoreland. Donna is very experienced. She has been doing this sort of thing for more than 25 years in this space. And she is the perfect person to introduce this topic to you. So I'm going to turn it over to Donna.
One of the things is how important it is for us to be on board with this and to understand it. It's not as foreign as you might have originally thought. We'll see that these are not unfamiliar things. They're just an evolutionary process. One of the things that I always tell my customers and the people that I train in how to use automated tools for managing change is change is the only constant. It's the only thing that we're going to count on forever. So we might as well do it well. So one of the most important things that DevOps really pushed to the forefront is the way that we designed our projects and how projects were being managed. So they started talking about Agile. In the past, we always used something called waterfall, which means that we would gather all of our requirements together for a big project. Then we would do all of our design specs and get all the design specs signed off on. And then we would go and do our big development effort. And then when we got ready to go into testing, one of the big surprises was, guess what? Requirements had changed. Because now it's a year and a half, 2 years later, and the business has grown, changed, modified what it needed. Now, that was very lengthy, very time consuming, and sometimes very costly. So the alternative to that was something we call the Agile development effort. And Agile development is all about iterative. So I am going to do things in smaller segments and continue to do it till improve and improve and improve. So instead of waiting and doing all the requirements at once, I start small, take that section and continue on to process. And we do that in something called a sprint. And sprints are usually 2 to 4 weeks long. And what a sprint means is I'm going to do a small part of this application, not a huge piece, but a small part. And then the next 2 to 4 weeks, I'm going to add to that. And the next 2 to 4 weeks, I'm going to add to that some more. So that means that I'm doing things in very small segments, making changes quicker, going through those test cycles faster, and putting it into production in a much more timely manner. Now, that is a wonderful philosophy. It's not as easy to implement in the IBM world as it is for a web application. What we found on the IBM is that there is a hybrid that can be a really good way to bridge the gap between lots and lots of planning and doing things very, very quickly so that we have an environment that'll work really well for us. So think about when you are looking at implementing DevOps and people are talking about Agile. Remember, Agile is great and there's lots of things we can do in an Agile environment, but there may be some things where we need to have some type of a hybrid because of database changes and impact and things like that. So there is a happy medium in there, and it's a very recognized project management strategy. So think about that as an alternative for your teams. When we think DevOps, we almost always see this Infinium symbol, and it's incorporated into almost every diagram that you see with DevOps in it. But if we look at what it is described in DevOps, we're going to see planning, coding, building, testing, Those are the things we did when we used the software development lifecycle. We did application lifecycle management. These are all the same steps. There's nothing different. It's just happening in a quicker transition. So when we look at DevOps, we're thinking not only about the coding cycle, but actually about the release and the deployment cycle, the timing of those events, the monitoring of those events, making sure that that cycle continues to move very smoothly. And so when we talk about our sprints and we're talking about that process, we are talking the strategy of using DevOps. So when we talk about DevOps, that's one of the things I want to clarify, because a lot of times people think DevOps is a product or a bunch of tools. It really is about ideas. It's about how we're going to get something taken care of. So it is a practice or a process that we're going to go through, and we want to use tools to help us to automate those processes. Because I literally can do DevOps with no automation at all. If I was a really small shop, I could probably do it and get away with it. However, it becomes very cumbersome the larger the organization gets, the more developers that are involved in the process, and of course, the more applications that connect back to our IBM I. Now, introducing the new term that we hear a lot of times, CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, continuous delivery. CI/CD is a way of developing software that you're able to release in a sustainable way. So that means consistent, repeatable processes so that I don't have to do anything by hand. I'm going to worry about the code, that everything else is going to be happening for me based on the tools that are already in place. So I get to utilize one or multiple tools to make that happen. And that means that the more automation we have, the more we can produce. So the less we have to worry about the how to get there and focus on the coding. So when we're talking about implementations and establishing a pipeline, there's two different ways to approach it. One is that you can think through, are you going to participate in an existing pipeline? Or are you on your IBM I going to drive the pipeline? In other words, initiate changes to happen on other platforms. And either way is a viable option. It's really all about what your organization needs. What role your IBM I plays within the organization can also make a difference in what choices you make. Then as you implement these new automation tools, what you're going to want to do is be careful in trying to do absolutely everything all at once. So pick the basics, put the basics in, okay? Think agile, put the basics in, and then build, evaluate, make adjustments, continue to evolve. So everything doesn't have to be perfect day one. You want to start simple, make sure it works for you, and then continue to build on it until it is exactly what you need it to be. And I'll promise you that probably will never happen because things change and you have to evaluate and adjust and continue to grow. So think of the process that you're building as something that also is going through a development cycle. Thanks so much for watching the highlights of our webinar. If you found this helpful and want to learn more to help you to accelerate change and innovation on the IBM I, just head over to mdna.com to watch a full webinar or browse the media library for more IBM I technical education.